Welcome to Koffee Talks, a Pokémon card collecting podcast, featuring David Person, owner of the world's most complete English Pokémon card collection, and Dan Norton, a longtime collector with all the knowledge behind the cards.
Hey everyone, how is it going? Welcome back. It is another Koffee Talks. I'm here with David as usual, and not as usual, we're here with John, PokeRadar, Pokemon Radar. Should have asked really before we started recording. Do you prefer PokeRadar or Pokemon Radar?
At this point, it's just radar. I think that's the easiest thing to say. Too many syllables, and who knows what Pokemon wants to do with banning my accounts these days. So
fair enough. Also realized what I should have done before recording is I literally own a Radar hat, and it's just over there. Could have put it on.
Oh, you
didn't.
That's right.
Totally didn't.
No, you got to show off the new hairdo. Well, you have for a while now, I guess.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So,
David, did you ever get a PokeRadar hat?
I got nothing.
Remember.
I got zero, nothing. No one will give me anything. No, I don't even know why it's PokeRadar. I love it though. It makes me think like I'm in the bottom of a submarine and we're about to shoot something down. But I got nothing. I don't even know why is it radar? What is the deal? What was the motivation behind the name?
It was a mixture between Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon. The Dragon Ball radar from the show is like the logo inspiration, and then Pokemon, obviously, just throw Pokemon in there to make that work. And then it kind of branched off into I can find anything for people as far as whether it's consignments or buying or whatever. I was able to play off of the word radar quite a bit within the collectible realm, so it worked out.
Very cool.
I think David's comment there really shows you an insight into how David's mind thinks. He said, "No one gives me anything." He didn't give me a hat, David. I bought a hat. It was merchandise that he was selling.
No, you turned that into a money situation. I'm talking about just the basic opportunity to own the hat. How about give me an awareness, give me an opportunity, give me a chance. I'm tired of being second fiddle to all you guys that are, we're big social media influencers. I'm not, you know what? Can I just say something looking at the camera? John is tremendously handsome. I just want to put that out there. It's really, I'm telling you, if it doesn't work out with a new gig, which we're going to discuss, I can get you probably a gig as a hand model or something. So just so you know.
You haven't seen my hands yet, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. I just was imagining. So.
John's just going to put his hands up and he just has like the guy from Scary Movie 2, just one of the hands is completely gone.
Wonderful.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Wonderful.
Just hold them there for the next hour. All right, so, I said in pre-show that, we'll just do the intro and we'll start talking about how everyone's week's been, and David's just jumping in with the questions because David pays no attention to what we're supposed to be doing. So, John, you're the guest. How's your week been? What have you been up to?
Great. I know you said you want to dive into a lot here, David, but I did start a new job. So getting the basics knocked out there at TikTok was what my week was full of. So it was quite busy. But outside of that, I've been recording to get ahead for my podcast as well. So I recorded with a couple new guests, and that's really it. My days are full of now a 9-to-5 job, recording podcasts, and I'm moving. So I'm moving to Washington. So I'm packing and figuring that whole thing out again.
Wait, moving from where?
I'm in Dallas currently.
Okay. And you're moving to the state of Washington?
Good old Washington State, the PNW. I'll be in Bellevue, Seattle area.
Wow. Fantastic. And I remember you said it in the podcast that I just watched of yours, but I'm sorry, I don't remember exact title of your new job at TikTok.
Yeah, it'll be category manager, account manager for collectibles with their TikTok shop. So they just launched, I think about a year ago, their live selling and TikTok shop, the e-commerce side of things with TikTok. So I'll be managing seller accounts there for collectibles.
Nice.
Are you trying to get new sellers on the platform? Are you trying to walk current sellers through a better experience? What's the main function as you know it to be?
Again, don't know how much detail I can go into here, but as far as I know, and I'm allowed to share, it's managing the further along accounts. So the prospecting will not be done by me, but I will be handling existing. Yeah.
And then I'm always curious because I know I realized from when you were talking on your last podcast that you weren't exactly sure of all the parameters of the job, but are you expecting the TikTok the platform? How is it different? When you think about it versus your experience at Whatnot and all the rest of them, how is it supposed to be different than those for live streamers that are on there?
So the biggest thing with TikTok is the fact that it's surrounding I think they're currently the largest social media platform in the world, at least with active users. So that's the key difference, is you're building off of what is probably the biggest public outreach for whatever you want to sell, right? Whatnot is made as they're labeled as a social commerce platform, but they didn't have a social media beginning like TikTok did. So that's the biggest difference, is the vast outreach of, what is it? I think it's like 2 billion users or something crazy. So that's a hard thing to compete with.
And when you do that, is there differences from how you're aware? The TikTok platform is known for more of a short format videos and stuff. So I'm imagining the live side would be completely different. It's just live, but in a much longer type of format.
Yeah, very similar to Twitch, to YouTube. People go live as long as they want. Some will go live I've seen. I mean, they've done the same on Whatnot. They'll have 24-hour streams running. A lot of these companies now, or I guess card sellers, have created companies purely for live streaming. So you're seeing a lot of guys have multitudes of employees and stream rooms set up at their shop to go 24/7, which is quite phenomenal. Also a little scary, but quite phenomenal.
Yeah, and Dan and I have talked a lot about this recently, the possibility of us doing something on the live side, because I've got some involvement now as a distributor for one of the largest selling items on live streaming these days. So, which are these Omega mystery boxes.
Oh, right.
So my question is, what are you familiar at all? I guess you're still pretty new, but how the differences in these platforms compare with respect to fees and that kind of stuff?
That I'm not 100% caught up on yet.
Okay.
I believe it's all public facing though, and can be found in their seller, whatever sections on their website or their app. But I know it's all fairly competitive with each other.
Okay.
This is not how I'll say. This is not how I expected the "How did your week" section to turn out. How was your week section to turn out? David, I think, is desperately just trying to get himself doing some streaming soon.
No, I think it's interesting because nobody really cares about you or me, Dan, and that's what you've got to figure out. You just look at Radar's views and you look at his following, and we should minimize anything about us at this point and get realistic about our long-term possibilities. We should jump on the coattails of the handsome guy and just ride right down the stream on the white horse. Okay.
So you got one very important thing wrong there, David. A lot of people care about the both of you. Also, well, actually, not enough people care about the both of you. I've always been a huge advocate for DJ Gigabyte's content. Not enough people. I said this with someone. It'll be out soon. I just recorded with Rusty with TCA Gaming, and not enough people coming into the hobby now are taking the time to study and make themselves aware of kind of the OGs of this hobby.
Yeah. And
Dan is one of them. The information he shared in his videos in the past, I still refer back to when I need to. I remember coming into the hobby hardcore 2015, 2016. Everybody knew who Rusty was that I talked to. Now it's 10%, 20%, which is a great thing to see the hobby grow. But the fact that they don't know him is a little frustrating to me, but also scary because I don't think they're following the proper practices to build a real long business.
I mean, me and David have talked
a great guy.
Yeah, Rusty's a great guy. I mean, me and David have talked a lot about how the hobby has changed and people's views on the hobby have changed. Like with stuff like when people are posting online, it's way more towards the entertainment side than the information side. You know, people are way more there's a lot more casual people involved. Like before, when you talked about it, it was a much smaller but a much more hardcore group. Like the people who were into it were all really into it, but now there's people involved at different levels, and the people who aren't as deep into it will go for those more entertaining videos rather than the more informative videos. And when that's what's getting the views, that's where more content creators are going to go down that route if they're trying to do it full time. You know, it is a lot harder, I think, to be making a good living and stuff off information videos, or not making the primary focus entertainment. But yeah, I always try and keep the information and stuff going. That's always that's what I enjoy doing. The stuff like the openings that I do are just to get time on the channel, make sure there's actual videos going up and I'm getting some watch time. But I'm sure we'll keep it going. It'll be fine.
Well, the podcast is growing pretty well, and I mean,
yeah.
David, you had some content flowing for a while as well, so I'm happy to see you back on YouTube. I think you guys are a great pair.
I appreciate that. It's I don't know how it's all happened, and maybe it's because I've working with Dan, I've been much more immersed in the last few months. So and that's been great because when you spend as much time and effort as I have in building a collection like this, to not know very much about it, it's almost an embarrassment. Although I have certain justifications, but they're not good ones. So doing these podcasts, even when Dan downplays and says I'm opening stuff and it's to get a few more views, his podcasts, when he does that, are so much more informative. He's not just ripping and shipping, right? He's going down into the cards and going down into the promotional cards and giving information about what the ultimate sets are going to look like from a master set standpoint. So it really is. I always wish that we could get out there a little bit more. Just because I think with all the work Dan has done from a content standpoint, it's worth people seeing. I know that, John, you have, I guess it was implied that you had I've been on your podcast before.
Yes.
And then you sort of seem to imply that you then maybe were off for a little bit and now you're kind of starting up again. Is that true? Is this kind of another iteration of you getting back more strongly into the podcasting side?
Yeah. I'm pretty well known for the inconsistency of content coming in and out a lot. But yeah, I've been going strong now. I'll have recorded my 19th episode, which I'm doing it weekly. So 19 episodes in on the new iteration of the Radar podcast. I've had different names as well as every time I go in and out of doing this, but yeah, it's been quite phenomenal. I've also, like, the other issue, like, I ramped up shorts, I ramped up clips with this new podcast, but have since let that fall off just again due to time issues, but I hope to pick that back up once I resettle in Washington. But going strong with the podcasts, so I'm happy with that.
Weren't you on Spotify? Did you?
Yes, still on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well, and then just YouTube, just those three.
Can you talk about the experience with Spotify and Apple? Because I know Dan has talked about, trying to make sure this can transition in a similar way. Talk about maybe the difficulty or not of getting it there, and then the results that you feel like, has it been worth it, or is it just a whole different audience that doesn't really know how to find it?
Yeah, monetarily not worth it. I actually I use a platform called Podbean, which is like $20 a month or something to host and distribute the podcast to wherever I want them to go. So I can have them, I post on there, it goes to Apple, it goes to Spotify. There are plenty of free options for that. I just found Podbean one day, dove into it. It made it really simple for me. So that's what I chose to do. Then the only reason I did that was to make my listeners happy. So I had, with the original podcast, it had been getting close to like 1,000 views at one point. And I had plenty of people messaging me on Instagram, commenting on YouTube, if it was on Spotify or not, so that they could listen to it while they are in their car or doing something else. Because when you're watching on YouTube, you have to have the video open.
Yeah.
They might have made that a little bit easier today, but still you need to have YouTube TV or whatever it is. So it was really a thing to help out my listeners to enjoy it. And it's definitely been growing too. I get roughly 200 to 250 downloads between Spotify and Apple
Wow.
per episode.
Nice.
And that's the one metric that I'm seeing a consistent growth pattern, more so than YouTube or anywhere else. It's much smaller, but I'm seeing consistent growth there. I think it's just a easier place for podcast listeners. I don't know how to interact with anybody that listens there. I haven't figured that out yet. But it was really just a thing to make my listeners on YouTube happy.
We are planning to. I am going to put this. I've said it a few times. I am going to. The reason it was taking so long is originally I had the plan with I was going to re-edit every episode to be more listenable rather than watchable, but that was taking so much effort. We've just come up with the idea. I'm just going to record an intro that just says, "Hey, this is an audio version of what is normally a visual podcast. Here is where you can watch the visual one," because of the fact that, all throughout the video, we're putting up pictures of cards and stuff we're talking about. We're showing off cards. The first episode I basically had to go back to the raw files and just create a new episode when I was trying to do that, to take out everything where we're saying, here's what's on the screen, or I would have had to record more links and stuff to say.
Well, I would leave that in. I would leave that in the audio now. Yeah, because then it would push people to go possibly check it out on YouTube. So it just kind of creates that little flywheel to push people there.
Yeah, that's the new plan with it. We're gonna get that going. But it was because recording for audio and recording for video is obviously completely different. So
yeah, there's definitely different strategies. I'm just so I wouldn't say lazy, but time efficient, where I don't edit. I just hit record, take out the front and the end, and then throw in the intro and outro, and then I'll put it on YouTube first, and then I'll take the audio from that and throw it on Spotify. So,
well, I'm sure you'll learn today with some of the stuff David says. Editing is necessary sometimes. So
that's not. And you know what? I'm going to say something right here. When half of last week's podcast hit the cutting room floor, I know where you live, Dan. I swear to God, there was no trainer deck A or B. And if John screws around today, I'm taking the segment last week that didn't get in because you decided to cut it, and I'm not having John do it because I'm not gonna. I want it in the podcast.
I need to have a podcast episode with Dave, Cool Trainer Ryan, and some other guys who will just let loose and say whatever is on their mind. That'll be a great episode.
As I explained to you when we were recording, David, there are things like advertising standards on YouTube, and I want a family-friendly channel, and you're not talking about the stuff that you talked about during that cut segment.
It's not the point. If you want a family-friendly channel, you need to dye your hair back to whatever that was family-friendly 6 months ago, okay? And then give me, okay? Preach what you pray or something. I don't know. John, what's the deal? John, I need to hear about your personal life. We don't know anything about you. You're moving across the country. You don't care where you stay for more than 2 to 3 months at a time.
Yeah.
You got a big bookshelf with the cards. You probably got to pack up and hope they don't get, stolen in the move. So
those will be shipped. But
okay, shipped. Yeah. So what do you got? You got any significant others? Any animals? Anyone that loves you at all? Tell us.
Well, so I grew up in Michigan originally.
I was born in Michigan, Detroit. Go ahead.
Yeah, just outside of Detroit. I was in Troy, Oakland County. I got a family of 6, 2 older brothers, a younger sister, some loving parents, grew up with dogs. Very blessed family to, be able to take a nice yearly trip every year, go up north to Michigan, maybe go out to Disney every now and then. So had a great life growing up. Did all the nerd things as a kid, swooped into the world of sports and chasing girls in high school and college. So I got out of the nerd stuff, but thankfully right back into it during my quarter life crisis. And Since then, I've moved all over the country in the past 8 years. San Jose, Los Angeles, New Jersey, Dallas, and now Washington. So um, quite a bit of a ride with Pokemon kind of taking over my life and giving me the means to finally explore the world a little bit, meet some incredible people like yourselves, um, do some really, really cool things with all types of people in this world of collectibles. So, um, yeah, I'm still kind of on the search for that one partner in my life to settle down with at some point. Who knows if that'll ever happen or not? But hoping for it one day. Obviously, I'd love to share my Pokemon collection and whatnot with a mini me of sorts at some point. So um, yeah, I'm 30, still kicking it, and yeah, that's my
That's,
personal life.
yeah. So Dan, you just be quiet for a minute because I've got to do a little matchmaking. So John, listen, okay. I've got this girl in my house, okay? You're really gonna like her. She's tremendous. You know, you got to give her a chance. She's very sweet, and she's like number one in your fan club. Her name is Allie, and she's of age now. So the thing is, so listen, I just want you to understand, willing to travel, and she loves Pokemon, and she loves your whole persona. So just keep that in the back of your mind. You know, I've got a few bucks if it helps you in the background at some point. You know, maybe finance a new business. So we'll see how that goes. But just keep it in mind. I've made a commitment to her too that I've got connections to get to celebrities like yourself, and so I just I think you should, it could be good once you get settled with the whole TikTok thing.
You never know what could happen, Dave. Where are you
Yeah.
these days? You used to be in California. I hear you've moved since.
I'm in Vegas
That's
because California wasn't quite enough action for me at the ripe old age of 62. I decided, if I can still lift as heavy as I could when I was 30, then I can still, party as heavy as I could when I didn't party much, but I'm not unwilling to party if it means like a nice big wedding, and we do that. So don't worry about it. Let's see, what else can I
moving to the
tell you?
wedding already.
Yeah, yeah, Dan, you're invited too. I just hope you'll wear a suit
Thanks.
this time. Yeah.
Nope.
So good. That's a great story. And what and John, what about your collection? I know Dan, before we got on, he was chomping at the bit. He's like, we've got to get into his collection and understand where his, priorities lie, and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So tell us about your Pokemon card collection.
Well, we got plenty of time, so why don't I dive into how it kind of where it started and how it's evolved, right? I mean,
Yes.
um, I originally got back into the vintage stuff as we all kind of do with the early WotC. The thing that I had my eye on at first was sealed product because I love opening stuff. That's where my true passion of Pokemon lies, is opening up packs, mostly with friends. I learned quickly that opening up packs alone with a camera and wasting thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars, I guess, at that point back in the day, was not that enjoyable. So I got to learn everything about sealed products. Try to teach myself as much as possible about counterfeits and all that stuff, so that I could make sure I wasn't getting scammed myself. So I built a pretty big sealed collection at one point to start, of all different types of things, boxes and packs. That at one point I shifted over into trophy cards once I started to learn about the history of Pokemon and the Japanese side of things. So a few years back, I sold the majority, if not all, of my sealed collection to start funding purchases of like Trophy Kangaskhan's and Play Promo Umbreons and Pikachus and all types of stuff like that. That to me had a lot of historical significance, which was also a business opportunity that I saw as well. I mean, this was a huge arbitration that a lot of people weren't willing to take the risk on. Buying from Japan, large sums of money, hoping that a card would show up on your doorstep with no insurance of any kind. And there was also just like a lack of information out there. I felt like a lot of the trophy card information and prices and sales were being gate kept. So I both saw an opportunity financially, but also to start to build a brand with, where I could become more well known and for sourcing and providing information on these super high end trophy cards. And that worked out beautifully. It accomplished everything I wanted with it. Doing that allowed me to make historic sales. I think hit some like top 10. I actually hit a childhood, an unknown childhood dream of being in a Watch Mojo video. If you're familiar
Nice.
with those at all, maybe not you, Dave, but there's this YouTube channel called Watch Mojo, and they would used to do top 10 videos of anything and everything, movies, probably what they're most well known for. And they recently did a top 10 or top 20 most expensive Pokemon card video, and I had 2 clips of mine put in there. Wow. Unbeknownst to me, I did not give them any approval to do that, but I was still okay with it. And that success with the trophy card stuff really launched my business, I guess, where I was doing a lot more with buying and selling, distribution with modern products, consulting, grading, eBay stuff, whatnot stuff, everything you can imagine, which has led to where I am today with my collection of really a large mishmash of everything. But most recently, a couple Snap cards. I recently acquired a Snap Articuno and a Snap Gyarados to launch my potential completion of the Snap set. We'll see if that happens.
It's a really cool set.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it lies right now. But I have plenty of other things. I have like my Shadowless 9 set. I have a binder full of the original base set that my brother had mostly him, but me and my brothers had as a kid. And a bunch of I got a ton of Dragon Ball Z. I love Dragon Ball Z Score. That's one of my most passionate things that I collect. Just looking around in the background. And I like historical things as well. I have the TMB medal from the Tropical Mega Battle 2000. I have one of the Hawaiian shirts that I overpaid for, but I own, so I'm very happy with it. And yeah, that's.
Did you just buy that medal recently when it was just for sale, or was this from a while back?
This was from a while back. The first time I ever bought a Tropical Wind, a 99 Wind, the seller included that with it. It was a nice bonus. I know a couple have sold recently. Yeah, and they're doing pretty well.
Will you talk about I know some viewers of course, like me, because I'm a viewer and don't know a darn thing. I've heard of Snap a lot, and it seems to be, pretty special, but someone like you that's decided after all this time to transition over to that as a card, as a collection, as a set, that means automatically it must be pretty special. So can you talk about it, so the viewers know what the Snap set is and when it came out, or what is appealing to you about it?
Yeah, I wish I could show you, but I put them away with this move coming up.
I'll throw up the photo that you have from Instagram and stuff.
Awesome.
Throw that on the screen. Yeah.
Perfect. And Dan, I want you to keep me honest here, because you have more knowledge than I do on this stuff as well. But again, personally with the Snap set, when I first discovered this set as a thing, for whatever reason, it caught my eye over everything else, over the Pikachu 97, 98 Pikachus, over the Illustrator, all that. It was like this mysterious set that no one had ever completed publicly. And that was
even
really
privately. Privately, I don't think anyone got all 10. The most I ever heard of privately was 5 or 6. I know one reseller had 8 at one point back in the early 2000s.
There's a couple now at 7 or 8. And I've somewhat very, very unofficially heard that there is a set privately, but I don't know if it was, obtained in an ethical way. So it just happened to be, it was one thing that just really stood out as far as not ever being completed. Again, it's not, I don't even know if it's been completed privately or not. So it's also a very nostalgic thing that's tied to the N64 Pokemon Snap game, Dave, which was I don't know about you, Dan, but like I played that game over and over and over and over again. It was a very easy game to beat. You could do it. And there was just all these little special things you could, Easter eggs within the game as well. But it was,
I was a
lot.
Mega Drive kid, which was the UK name for the Genesis. So I was Sega rather than Nintendo for
so you
the main
missed out
consoles.
on that.
I did, yeah.
Gotcha.
I had obviously the handheld Nintendo consoles, but for home consoles, I was a Sega kid.
Gotcha. So back in, I guess 99, when the game came out, or was it 98, I guess, in Japan, the video game came out, they had two separate competitions, one for the Koro magazine, and then one for, I think it was Nintendo directly, right, Dan?
Yeah, it was possibly Nintendo 64 magazine was. I think that's where it was like advertised and stuff, but I think it was Nintendo themselves, ran the contest. I think they owned the magazine. So
yeah, so there were two separate contests. I don't know the timing of the two, which one came first, if they were at the same time, but they were two contests that were ran in 98 and 99, and they awarded 5 each winners for the best photo that they selected. They opened it up to everybody to send in photos that they took in this video game, which I'm sure they got loads of the same photos. So I'm kind of curious how they actually picked the winner. Probably just took one from a hat, but they selected 5 winners for each contest, so 10 total, and those winners got either 20 or 15 copies each of their photo on a Pokemon card. So the Nintendo 64 was that 15 each? I always get them mixed up.
I can never remember. I'd always heard that it was everyone got 20, but then it was obviously information changed and more was revealed later. So yeah, I don't remember which way around it was, but so very limited numbers.
Yeah, so either or. It was either Koro had 20 or 15, and N64 had 20 or 15, and only given to the winner. And the really interesting thing that's also pushed me today to purchase these is that, from my knowledge and from the looks of what's going on in the public domain of these cards, I haven't seen any extra copies yet, which I think we're all aware of extra copies of the Illustrator and the original trophies and all this.
Yeah. David's not aware of anything. We'll explain it to David in a moment. Okay. He's not aware of anything.
By the way, I actually am, and I know that's going to shock and surprise you, but everybody's wonderful Illustrator comments, and from the folks that sell them and assert to the fact that there's only 39 or 30 something, and then you talk to everybody that knows, and they're like, it's about 75 or 80. So anyways, yeah, surprisingly, I actually do know an occasional thing. Go ahead, John, please.
So yeah, that's. And this is all, again, can be easily stumped by extra copies actually coming out. But the one thing I looked at was the Poliwag, which is one of the Snap cards. The winner of the Poliwag sold all of his copies, I believe, back in 2015-ish.
About then, yeah.
And we haven't seen any pop up since, except for the private dealings between really Western collectors, honestly. So it could be a possibility. It's a theory that there aren't extra copies of Snap cards, but I'm sure there are. There have to be. They just haven't popped up yet. So I just like that they haven't, and I like that they might potentially be true to their actual distribution numbers.
Yeah. And obviously, the hardest thing about putting a set together is that they were only given their own card. Like the art academies that came in like 2016 or whatever, because the art contests for, I'm sure a lot of people have seen like the Pichu, Arceus, or the Zoroark art contest cards. the winners of those got full sets, so they got their own plus everyone else's card. They got like a certain number of sets, which is why those were so much easier to put sets together, because people were given them in sets and they were selling them as sets. A lot of winners, I think, either sold sets or they just kept their own and sold everyone else's. But with the Snap, it was they were only given their own card, and obviously it was given out, like say 99 or something in Japan. So they were, all of them were in Japan. It wasn't a worldwide thing where some people are getting them here, some people are getting them there, and
Right.
they were basically never leaving the country easily and publicly. I mean, eBay was barely a thing back then.
And they easily could have gone to somebody who had no interest in the card game at all.
Yeah, totally. Just someone who liked Pokemon Snap.
Right. So it wasn't likely that these winners were meeting with each other to trade at events.
Yeah.
Which made it incredibly difficult. I mean, that's why it took 20 years for the Magikarp to surface, and 20 some years for a Pikachu to sell as well.
Yeah.
What's your...
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so John, I think it's so interesting when you talk about this concept of a card being true to its actual numbers. Recently I've had dealings with some of the uncut sheets that came out and were from probably originated from original WotC type of employees, but we're very clear to announce that something came from an uncut sheet.
Yeah.
Something is, we're not trying to round corners and fake the public out. We're saying these are what they were, their test prints, cut them associated, and be very forthcoming with the origination of this stuff, because it's still rare and still very appealing in the sense of the historical standards of the hobby. What is your feeling as far as, folks, that a lot of the stuff that, has come out through the back doors or over the course of time, or maybe it originates now, or it doesn't originate, but it appears now because with prices so high, it gives people an incentive to bring it out?
Well, first of all, thanks for calling me while you were in Dallas. Appreciate it.
My apologies, my friend. I want you to know I was thinking about you, and I have no excuse. Okay.
I know it was a quick trip for you, but yeah. So it's a difficult conversation, right? I mean, there's no correct way here. There's the one side of it that is really great from, again, a collecting historical standpoint, that these things are coming out and they are being available to, or are made available to people publicly. It's also looking at the ethical side of things, whether it was right or wrong, officially legal or not back in the day when these sheets were being printed. The fact is they got out. It happened. It's pretty cool, but also something that might have been needed to create the rules and laws that are needed now for Pokemon and all that to stop it from happening today. But yeah, I mean, this stuff has kind of been floating around forever. People got some of this stuff super cheap back in the day and comparatively to now. And the fact that it's become so financially abundant to sell, it's definitely drawn out a lot more. I just think we have to be careful with the information we're sharing. I mean, being as transparent as possible. If like this is where it came from, this is what we're doing. But anyone that's throwing around numbers like, oh, there's only 3 of these disco sheets. Are there really? How many could there really be? So I think it's great that they're out there and available to the market. I would greatly appreciate some of these things to be left alone as far as not getting cut, so we have some uncut sheets left over. But again, cutting them up and allowing someone to complete a set, allowing a Chansey collector to get a Chansey, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I kind of see both ways as well. I mean, it's really interesting to me. I think so many of us in the hobby point to Rusty as someone who we just, love and trust, and, and just one of the very best guys. And yet, his startings and his beginnings and all of this, really, a lot of that stuff came from the factory in some way, right? And so, but I don't think that's really a judging thing, because if somebody's giving you stuff or you're able to obtain it, more power to you. It's sort of like the person that wins the auction. Are you jealous, or do you just say, congratulations, you won?
Yeah.
So I do think being transparent is critical. And I think transparency, and again, I just say this because maybe when you said, hey, there's 3 disco sheets or whatever, and you're thinking maybe there's 20, I think if people know there is, people should say it. And otherwise, then they should say, we know of 3 at this point, right? We know of 5 at this point. We think there could be more. I think about my pre-release Raichu. I have read every bit of provenance on it, and I'm convinced there were 11 originally made from all of the details I've gone through. I think, Mike Boozer said there was 8. I think he's wrong. He said it many years after the fact. And I think that it could have been just because he didn't really remember and wasn't originally involved in the actual mistake in cutting. And so, but that doesn't mean that there isn't still WotC employees that don't have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 put away. I don't know that in any way. I can speculate. I only know of my card. But I wish there were more. I wish there were not such an incentive for sellers that, are selling a Pikachu Illustrator to say, yes, of course, we all know there's only 39, when everybody that's ever handled one knows there's double that. Yeah. That's the part that is frustrating. And I don't disagree with you from an idyllic standpoint. If we had a Pokemon museum somewhere, and that museum offered to buy someone's uncut sheet to display it for the rest of the world to see forever, that would be one thing. But if that person gets offered $250,000 at an auction, to sell it, it's pretty tough for them to not decide to do that if they were the fortunate one that holds that piece of in demand, nostalgia.
And then that next layer of incentive to cut it up and get $1 million for the sheet.
Correct. Yeah.
I talked about that with Rusty. We recorded yesterday, and talked about that because, obviously he has a bunch of sheets. I own a Machamp sheet that I've had for a few years now, and I like it. It's not a meaningful piece to my collection. I could maybe get $5,000 for it the way it stands, but if I cut it up, I think I could easily get $100 a card, and that's 110 cards. It's $11,000.
Yeah,
and I think that's on the low end too. Of course, cutting sheets is privately and professionally is risky, expensive, but the incentive there to double your money on something like that, 10x your money on something like that, that could change your life, change your family's life. It's very, very appealing.
Luckily for me, I think the only sheet I have is probably worth more together than it would be separate, because I just have the fossil hollows. I think even cutting that, I think that the fossil hollows wouldn't outweigh the cost of the uncut sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, and when I told the story of obtaining the uncut sheet recently, the disco one, I just didn't feel comfortable storing it, maintaining it, displaying it. I had years ago in my sports card days, I had taken some Vargas prints in trade for some baseball cards. And over the years, any of them that I had framed and put on a wall, they'd all deteriorated. Now I know today there's more sophisticated light protection and this and shadow boxing and all the rest of it. Yeah. But for me, it just didn't make a lot of sense when I really am a collector and I was doing something to just put it in my collection. Mm-hmm. But, does that make me any better than somebody who then took the sheet and did something else with it and maximized profit? I'm not a judgmental person. I don't really get into that. I just, I did what I thought was okay, and I bought a sheet that was available, and and I could morally question myself all the time, but I didn't see anything necessarily wrong with it.
Yeah.
I
People
do
are,
want to say something for you, John, because I want you to talk about this. It was so interesting in the podcast, one of the podcasts I recently watched of yours. You talked about the drama videos,
yeah.
and you talked about how it being a moniker of, okay, this hobby is now big time because you've got these content creators living off drama videos, and so maybe you can talk about that and dovetail that into what I'm sure will be people coming out with drama on what was done, what I did, and the rest of it, and is it realistic? Is it them just needing to monetize and finding another topic to talk about, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I think everyone's entitled to their own opinion and allowed to say whatever they want to say, of course. And as far as this drama stuff that's come out, it all originally started to me as a proper wholesome thing where they were trying to protect people, trying to stop scammers and thieves and true illegal acts that were happening, destroying the hobby. I think that has, with new people coming on and the popularity of it, it's kind of shifted some of, I guess, the intentions behind the drama channels and open this up to a chase for views and a chase for content and looking to really go over the top and hurt people's businesses that are genuinely trying to build something, who might just be ignorant. People make mistakes. It happens all the time. So I think that drama stuff can go too far. And I mean, it's the one thing that has really hit public eyes is the Blake Martinez thing, which is a great thing to have hit public eyes and stop what was happening there. But once little ticky tack things that are just honest, true mistakes start to go viral like that, it can cause some real issues for people. And you got to be careful with who you're talking about, what you're talking about, and have a little bit of humanity and make sure you're not going after people who can't really handle that type of attack, I guess, if that's how you want to phrase it. Um, and like you said, with you making the best decision based off of your morals and your ethical stances with the sheet stuff, I think that's more than fine. I mean, I am one to agree with what you did with it. I think it was perfectly fine. It was your property. You're allowed to do whatever you want with it. But inevitably people will come out and say like, oh, you're a terrible person for destroying Pokemon history, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that's that's just what the narrative would be. I don't know what else they would dive into on something like that, but as far as all the drama, it exists. It's there. I don't care so much for it. I'm one to easily block those things out and not listen to it, and I'm perfectly fine. Like, I know who I am as a person. I know what my intentions always are. If I make a mistake, I make a mistake, and but I feel terrible for those who don't have that mental strength, I guess.
Yeah, in terms of
go ahead, Dan.
Just say, in terms of the drama channels, I mean, a lot of this change in how they go after the smaller mistakes and stuff comes from the fact that in content creation, you have to just be so consistent with your uploads and stuff. So there could be, you talk about these big things where it's like, oh, the Blake Martinez situation. Yeah, it's a real thing that needs to be talked about. But if one of those situations comes along every 6 months, people can't just go 6 months without doing videos and stuff. They just have to fill that 6 months with something. And otherwise, even if you try to do it on YouTube algorithms would hate you for it. You'd never get traction 6 months' time. So it's just they have to find something to fill that time with, which all content creation like that it's absolutely horrible the way content creation is and algorithms and stuff that I think a lot. I will say, I always say, like, that's why a lot of my views I think are lower than they should be, is because of the big breaks in content creation I've taken. And even though I've been trying to do it consistently for a couple of years now, YouTube looks at the full history of your channel, and it's a whole thing. But
yeah,
that's
you
why
you have to take a year to build it back up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dan, I'm going to tell you something. You're not getting off the hook, Dan, with respect to our numbers. If this is our Coffee Talks number 22 or 23 or whatever it is, if we fall behind, if John is at 19 and his number is ever higher than ours, his podcast number 19, I'm back on the scene again. We're going to be 24-5. We're going to be 3 ahead of him. I don't care if you go to the UK, the UF, the UC, possibly the emergency chat. I don't care. Okay, we're staying ahead. I do want to say, John, I appreciate so much of what you said about the drama stuff, because I am in complete agreement. And I think Dan has a really good point as well, which I don't always think that, about when he said they've got to be consistent with their content creation. But I am so frustrated by the fact that it does seem like a lot of it has turned from trying to help and like the Blake Martinez situation, to just trying to hurt. And I'm a believer. I'm not a religious guy at all, but I certainly respect everyone with their religious beliefs and everything that, to use a religious analogy for whatever it's worth, because I've never done it before in my life because I'm not religious, but aren't we all sinners in some sense? And, don't we deserve to be forgiven, outside of something that's really, and even, even if it's egregious, but don't we all make mistakes, like you said, John? And so, that's the whole idea of everyone's got a little bit of a skeletons in their closet. And so if you want to drudge down and go back 25 or 30 years or something, because that's what it's going to do to get you some more views, it just makes no sense. And I have very few strong opinions of anything. I just like people to do what they want to do. But I remember talking to Logan Paul when he did that break, and everybody was all, there was so much controversy. And he's like, David, I got a whole stadium of people live, 3 times, 300,000 people watching me. And he goes, I'm doing it purely for entertainment. And we started talking about his past, where I don't remember what it was, but he found a body in the jungle, or, somebody, all that stuff. And he goes, I did some stupid stuff. And he goes, I was an idiot back then. And, you have to learn, and you have to say, I did stupid stuff, and you have to move on. And I'm not letting him off the hook, because I don't even know what he did. But I'm just saying, if you take a person that takes accountability and says, hey, I'm out for the good and just my own stuff now, I think it's okay to have a little bit of forgiveness if somebody hasn't really, done something horrific or something.
Yeah, that word is important. Accountability. I mean, if this is something you truly want to do, content, Pokemon, whatever industry you're in, and you make a mistake, you need to take accountability for it and move forward. So, that's one thing that I think he did well. He might have pushed it a little bit on using it for views, his apology videos and all that. But he took accountability for it. He moved past it, and he got bigger than he was before, doing greater things. So, anybody that makes mistakes just needs to take that accountability and press forward.
Right.
I mean, the other terrible thing with this all people talking about the drama is, like you said, there are actual big things that sometimes happen in the hobby that are huge issues and hugely illegal issues. People literally actually breaking the law, screwing people over, maybe costing people a lot of money, that kind of thing. And it all just gets lumped in as, this is drama. It's like, no, some of this isn't drama. When someone's trying to say, oh, this person did something wrong on a live stream, that's a bit of drama. But you can't, people just then lump in, oh, this person broke the law and screwed over hundreds of people. It's like, oh yeah, there's some new drama in the Pokemon world. And that's, I think, one of the worst things that happens with it, is just that it downplays some of the actual really bad things that are happening.
Yeah, and it takes away from all the great things that happen. I mean, I've lost love for the hobby because of the shine on negativity. I mean, the first few years doing this, it was just 99% positive and exciting and discovering new things, meeting new people, awesome accomplishments from collection standpoints or whatever it may be. And now like I bought a snap card and I don't even like it's celebrated by myself and my few friends in my circle, which I think is really the most important thing. That's all that I really need. But something like that used to be historical and celebrated amongst like the entire hobby. So it's just kind of shifted and taken away from the great things that happen.
There's no community anymore like there used to be. There's no more. It doesn't feel like people are really out to help each other in general anymore. It feels like that's other than very, very small groups of friends where you might have one or two people that you're
Yeah.
close with where you try and help them. It doesn't feel like the community, the hobby in general, is trying to help people. You know, it's always money is the first thing now, and then helping people is second, where it used to be completely the other way around. It was always just, oh, you know what, I'll help you out the good of my heart. If you help me later, great, or someone else might help me. It's all the way it is, but now it's just, I'll help people will help their close friends, but
Yeah.
anyone else, it's just like,
On the
where's
surface
money at?
level. Yeah. On the surface level view of the grand, if you lump everyone together, but there's still, there's still community. I think there's still strong community. It's just harder to find.
Do you think though, John, it's and I'm not trying to cause controversy. I'm just interested again because one of the most recent podcasts you did had somebody who is a social media influencer on talking about monetizing and really building up and going past PokeRev and some of that other stuff. So do you think that there's more of a fracturing of the maybe not necessarily a singular community, but almost like a caste system in the sense, okay, you've got now these social media people. I don't care about, I don't judge them. I'm just saying we know the big views, PokeRev and Leon Hart and Chloe and Dean and Ando, so, is there becoming this kind of system where they're all up there kind of doing their own thing? And so they're not really as community oriented. And then you sort of get maybe a mid tier and that kind of stuff.
Um, yeah, it's one way to look at it. I think if you're not spending the time and putting in that effort to truly get to know people and build real relationships, it's pretty easy to throw people in a hierarchy or category of sorts, depending on how you feel about it. Um, just for me personally, I always look at the positive side of things, so I can be ignorant to some of that. But yeah, it's a difficult thing to navigate. I mean, I can see myself getting, jealous or a little bit upset when I see a brand new person in the hobby who's getting tons of views and claiming to be this expert in Pokemon when I know they started a year ago and
Yeah.
barely know anything. But at the same time, they could be a great help to the industry, to the community. It all just depends on whether or not they're truly doing the research and trying to be a positive educational person within it. So I've seen Logan Paul came in, did a great thing for the financial markets of Pokemon, the awareness of Pokemon, growing the industry as a whole. And then just, completely ghosted and left entirely to let a lot of those people he brought in lead them to believe things were worth a certain amount of money and then crashing and burning. So it's, to me, there's always a yin and yang with all this stuff. And I try not to get upset or get angry at people for being new or, or whatever it might be. I try my best to embrace it all and make sure that they're doing the educational part of it or learning themselves and how to truly be a part of the community and not just be there cash grabbing and selling dreams and promises that don't come through.
I do think the types of media that report on these people do a lot of the negative stuff rather than the people themselves. I think because people will often get a negative opinion of someone by reading what other people have written about them rather than by actually looking at what the person's doing. Like I know so many people, especially during the Logan Paul thing, would talk so much crap about Logan Paul when they hadn't actually even watched any of the stuff Logan was doing with Pokemon. They just either read or watched other videos of people commenting on what they thought about what Logan was doing and were getting their information second, third, fourth hand of what was happening. Like, I know there was an article I remember went around like about a year ago about Chloe, where it was like Chloe is paving the way and girls are now allowed to collect Pokemon. And I remember just sending that to like 5 or 6 of my friends, my female collector friends, and like, my wife. People have been collecting Pokemon since like '99. Just being like, hey, congratulations on being allowed to like Pokemon now. And it's like, I'm sure Chloe wasn't involved in that headline, and Chloe would never put herself across that way as like, oh yes, I am the first woman to like Pokemon. No one did it before me. But anyone who doesn't know who Chloe is or hasn't seen her stuff, and their first impression of her is seeing that article, like, yeah, you're absolutely going to have a negative opinion of her going in because it looks as though she's presenting herself that way. And I think that's a lot of the negativity comes from people getting their information not from the source.
Yeah, and I have 2 things to say. Number one is Chloe, absolutely ruthless. So I'm going to tell you, I don't care if you want me to say it or not. So believe me, she's 2022, jumped in the fray, told somebody she was going to help me get a card and took it for herself. So that's fine. You know what? I don't care one bit because she's allowed to do whatever she wants. That's the nature of the world. She got there first. Congratulations. I got there second. I'm very happy. Second's good with me.
You got one?
I got one. So I just absolutely fine. So you know what? Karma's fine. And number 2 is I don't care what anybody does. Like, I don't, we all have the ability, should we choose, to replicate anything anyone else is doing. It's not a huge barrier to entry. If we want to rip and ship and we want to get 1 million viewers or whatever, we just got to do the work, right? We got to hire a 6-person team, John, and do whatever else is going on. So, the whole thing is, I'm okay with all of it. I'm not there to judge it. I'm there to, as long as folks aren't, what I'd say to my kids, as long as you're not doing something illegal, do whatever the heck you want, right? Enjoy yourself, make a living, don't make a living. My daughter's not done anything illegal, John. So don't worry about that. She's really kind of a gemstone. You're going to really appreciate her. So, but anyway,
I don't know how you're going to feel about me competing with those trophies though coming up.
No, don't worry about that. And if you need a trophy, if that's what it takes, what is that word called in the Indian culture?
A dowry.
A dowry, yes. If you need a couple of trophy cards, I got like maybe 2 extras, John. I can get you. So they'll be worth a lot. Don't worry about it. So anyway,
you have to remember, John. He has like 20 kids, so that share of the inheritance isn't as big as you think it'll be. If that's the incentive, just get in the family and wait till he's gone.
No, I can carve out a special dowry trust for you. It's all going to be good. So, John, you said that your specialty was in the beginning the sealed type of products.
Yeah.
And I haven't bought a booster box for years because I'm so afraid of the whole counterfeiting situation now.
Yeah.
And in my dreams, I envisioned, because I've got secondary booster boxes of all years going back, opening, so to speak, turning my website into a Pokemon pack emporium. That's what I always wanted to do. But when I see that now, and when I think about that, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make up a random number. I can get $100 a pack, but by the box, I can get 200 because people trust the box more than the individual packs.
Yeah.
Am I just never going to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think you'll have to sell through TCA Gaming or somebody else. I'm right there with you. I'm terrified to buy boxes as well. I mean, I don't trust eBay, Heritage, PWCC. I mean, I guess they're opening them now and verifying, but can they even verify the packs themselves?
Right.
I used to only buy from specific types of stores, from specific people. That broke down to even fewer and fewer as I started to see people go into stores and sell boxes to them that I knew they couldn't really authenticate. It was just recently a store that I used to buy from all the time got swindled on a first ed Neo Destiny box. I mean, he paid a price that was way too good to be true from the start, so he should have knew better. But he lost like 12K or whatever on a first edition Neo Destiny box because it was repacked with whatever modern set was inside it. So I rarely buy vintage these days. It's a very rare occurrence. We'll all run into an old store owner that's selling out or whatever, and it's really a gut feeling thing at this point because those reseals these days are way too good.
And it was even just a couple of years ago, Rusty found out he had the fake one in his collection, and like we've said,
Yeah.
Rusty is like is super knowledgeable on all of this stuff, and if it was good enough where it fooled Rusty for a long time, then you just have to know, especially with like all the old stuff where it doesn't have any sort of logo or anything on the shrink wrap. Sometimes it's a problem.
Yeah, that first ed base box I will never buy without opening unless I'm getting that case from Gary. Like I just could never. I couldn't buy David Adams. No, Troll and Toad. No, that has to be opened.
Yeah.
And they could tell me whatever story about whatever closet they found it in Hawaii. First ed base box for eternity. I won't touch unless it's opened, which sucks because I want one.
Should the industry evolve to a point where, let's say I'm selling an expedition pack, should I, just to protect myself as a seller and then maybe possibly the buyer as well, should all of those things somehow eventually be opened on camera? So in other words, someone buys a pack from me, I don't even send it out to them. I say, here's how you're buying it from me. I'm opening it on camera so you can see that, and of course they could still be resealed. They could have extracted out a hollow or something, but before it even leaves my place.
I mean, I've thought about all the void if open stickers and the putting it inside of a Phantom display case with another void if open sticker. But it's just so easily recreatable. I mean, look at that case that Logan bought, the stop tape and the label reprinted.
Yeah.
I just can't think of any way to truly, even with videotaping, it's so easy to doctor a video or repackage a box exactly how it was packaged when it was sent to you. Because I use that was always a go-to for me. Was anytime I ship something out, I remember selling heavy first edition base set packs. Like I think I was one of the first people to do it for like 5K back in 2017.
Yeah.
I took a video of me weighing it, packing it, taping it, printing the label, putting it on the box, driving to the post office and dropping it off with the box in camera the whole time. And of course, that person tried to claim that pack wasn't what it was. And I had the video, gave it to PayPal. I won the case. So it's ridiculous to go that lengths, first of all, to protect yourself. But I can't think of any way to truly, it's just like forever going to be a trust. You have to trust marketplace. And
there's always going to be
a shame.
Bad people who will try and get around it or fake things in any way. There's no fully secure thing. Those void if open stickers, it seems to have been worse for the hobby in some respects because it's putting a false sense of security for people. Because when some streamers are going like, oh, I've put this void sticker on it, it's sealed in this, then people are getting the idea of, oh, anything that's sealed in one of those is 100% legitimate. Even if it's now like the fourth person that's owned it, like, oh, it's in one of these. And it's like, well, what? Who opened it? Who put it in that? It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's got a void if open sticker. It's like, that means nothing. It's the same as a lot of times timestamps on things. People are like, oh, they gave a timestamp. It must be 100% legit. And even though, a good time, like asking for a timestamp is a way of helping to verify something because you can check, see if the timestamp's doctored, anything like that. It's got to now at the point where it's like, oh, if there's a timestamp, I don't need to do any further research into this. I don't need to actually look into this anymore because I'm secure because I've got that timestamp. And then it actually ends up hurting people more than it's helping because people stop doing any further looks into it. And yeah, those void if open stickers and the tamper seals or whatever, they're exactly the same.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous ask. And any like I've I always had the idea of doing like what BBCE does, but doing little radar logos on a reseal.
Yeah.
I don't want to take that financial responsibility, that risk,
But
because
like
people can just
literally, what stops
recreate it and
you?
then
Yeah. But what stops you opening a box on camera, putting them these things, putting the seals on, turning the camera off, ripping them out,
redoing it.
putting them in a new slip, and putting a new sticker on? Like it
Exactly.
doesn't stop anything.
Exactly. So
It's like,
it's
this sticker hasn't been opened. It's like, yeah, it's a new sticker. They just did it again off camera.
right.
Like,
It's completely pointless. Like, I would hope people would trust me doing that, but again, whoever it goes to afterwards could easily recreate it. If I can make it, someone else can.
yeah,
And that's the full circle moment is they can trust you all that they want. I think I'm the most trustworthy person in the entire hobby, as silly as it sounds, having never even weighed a single pack and never opened a pack myself other than on a stream, because I've just never been a gambler. And yet the drama thing is going to come out afterwards saying, no matter what I did something wrong. And that's
Right.
going to change everybody's opinion. So
Yeah.
I have just one quick follow-up, John, because this is a pet peeve of mine, but and we tend to think alike, but I'm looking for some some differentiators here. I can't stand being as similar to you as I am, other than the good looks and the real thick, good young beard, and the nicer world's hat that I respect and wish I owned, so I could take it off your head and put it on Dan's.
This is a finalist one too.
Of course
this is
it
a
is.
rare hat right here.
It's really neat. It's really, really neat. I like it a lot. So, grading of individual packs. So, I want you to see my wonderful PSA 10 Skyridge pack all slabbed up. Your thoughts?
Is it the old one? Is it folded?
I don't care what it is because I think it's all complete. I can't say a word because Dan will they'll take them off the channel. So what is your thought on that?
Well, the swearing, Dan, by the way, is after 7 seconds, so you can start swearing after that, and you can still get the ads.
I still want my channel to be family friendly. I know you can. I'll come on your We'll come on your podcast and we'll swear all we want a bit later.
After 7 seconds, free
7
reign.
seconds. Yeah.
I mean, my best one so far was Cool Trainer Ryan, and that was the most the most aggressive one yet. So,
so in other words, Dan, let me be myself. Okay, go ahead, John.
Graded packs. The old ones are the old cases are just a waste. I can't believe they ever graded packs like that at all. There is still a very unclear, even today, I guess standard for what determines the grade for a pack. So it's a little bit of a joke still. And I think there's better ways to display packs anyway than a PSA case. I don't get it. I don't get the grading of. I get the authenticating of a sealed item. I don't get the grading of a sealed item. Doesn't make any sense to me.
But why would you even get the authenticating of it? In other words, so I take a pack and it's as legitimate as it can be, but I weigh it and it's light. It's never going to be sold. And then I grade it and it's a 9 or a 10 or whatever because that gets graded. And somebody thinks they have this wonderful thing because they don't really understand weighing and all the rest of it. And it's nothing more than a pretty pack with nothing inside.
The only answer to that is putting myself in someone else's shoes where that is a truly like grail collectible piece item for me, where I want the original sealed packs for my collection on display. And it's the coolest thing to me for where I am at in this point of the hobby and under all the knowledge. I mean, that's something I think everywhere, like whatever the saying is, the more knowledge you gain, the less enjoyment you get out of life or something. To me, it's ridiculous. I would never want that. I would just take a couple light packs and put them on display as is or something. But I don't understand the grading at all outside of putting myself in someone else's shoes who would think that is a cool thing.
I mean, for authentication, the in theory reason is, if PSA has authenticated something and then it turns out to not be authentic, PSA refunds you for that item because they've made a mistake. Again, in theory, well,
Good
not
point,
so
but
much in
also do they?
practice, but-
Yeah, do they actually do that?
Yeah. They will take every loophole they've got to not do that, but that is the theory behind why you would want an item authenticated by a third party, is because they will, again, in theory, take responsibility if it turns out that they were wrong.
Yeah, their financial backing guarantee that only works for cards worth $10.
Yeah, I will say, for in terms of grading packs, like the most ridiculous thing ever is, I think, when they also grade, like when it's an individual card sealed in like a cello pack, like promos that come inside something, and they grade that, and you can fully see the one card in it, but the grade is for the quality of the cellophane, and the grade isn't anything to do with the card. I just think that's I think that's just hilarious as a concept, really.
Yeah, the grading side of things has definitely gone too far, and I can see that being a negative on any hobby doing something like that.
Yeah. All right.
Sean, what about my
gone.
turn, Dan? Dan, just
All
hang
right.
in there some more. Because I got a lot to ask this guy. I haven't even come. I mean, there's so much on my mind. John, in your past, when you've done the podcasts, or maybe even in your hobby history, can you talk a little bit about maybe some unique moments, unique things you've learned, maybe an interview or two that you're like, wow, that was my real shining moment, something I'll always treasure forever, or whatever, that kind of stuff?
I guess as far as like moments just in the hobby, the greatest one that ever happened was opening a first edition base set Charizard with Slowpoke, with Jeremy. Me and him bought a couple packs off of Japan, and opened up the two heavies. Two of them happened to be heavies. I opened a pack, got the Charizard. He opened a pack and pulled a Venusaur. So that moment will forever be my highlight, greatest moment in Pokemon ever. So I'll always go back to that one. The other thing is, more meaningful to me is just like that moment when I realized I could quit my job to sell Pokemon cards for a living. I mean, that was huge to get out of that rat race and industry that I hated so much. I mean, now I'm back to doing 9 to 5 stuff, but it's in Pokemon, which is just astounding to me at a company like TikTok. It's crazy. It makes no sense, but it's phenomenal. I'm very happy about it. So that was a big moment. And then, I mean, the long-winded gathering of all the relationships is probably the most meaningful thing. I mean, I've built real friendships with you people, you guys, you people as in Pokemon collectors. And it's, I've gone to, I went to Slowpoke's wedding. Like, he was a guy that I met through Pokemon cards. Some other thing, I guess, as far as like learning, it kind of connects to the relationships where everybody there's so many different walks of life that go through this hobby, and how Pokemon has either impacted emotionally or changed it financially for so many people. I've really learned myself to be more humble. First thing, I've always been a cocky person my whole life, still kind of am to an extent, but much, much more humble now, just due to the many different walks of life of people that I've met throughout these past however many years. So that's been an amazing thing for me as a person, just becoming a better person, more likable person.
Very, very rare trait in Pokemon is being humble. Having humility is the biggest chase of them all in Pokemon. That's the one thing everyone's after and no one's got.
That was the ultimate collecting goal for me, is humility. Yeah. And then of course, again, traveling the world, I got to, my favorite thing that I like to tell people is, I went from trading cards on a school bus as a kid to trading cards in Dubai. So I've done Pokemon trades all around the world, and it's a really great experience.
A huge turning point for me was after my first Worlds, when people were like, "Oh, so you do the Pokemon thing?" I was like, "Yeah, I went to Hawaii last month for it," and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's That's a big thing, is that you actually traveled, and this isn't just you sitting and doing it alone. You're going out and experiencing stuff. That, and then in a local Magic tournament I played a bit. People were like, "Oh, so why are you playing?" And then it was like, "Oh, well, I won the tournament at a local store, so I've got a free trip to France next month." So they're like paying for me to travel to go to this event. And it's like, oh, okay, you're actually getting something out of this. It is a real like flip the switch moment for people when you mention that you're doing stuff like that, and it is experiences. It's not just cards.
Right. And that reminds me, I mean, the one thing that opened up my eyes to make this a serious, I guess, endeavor for me was 2017 Worlds in Anaheim. I went down there for a day. I went down there because I had just been doing Pokemon for a year and a half or so, collecting, kind of conversing with people. I knew Jem at Pokemon just through doing deals with him. He was kind of the big YouTube star at that point, Zach. And, I had just been doing Pokemon behind the scenes, and this event came around, and I happened to be living in California at the time. I was going through some medical issue stuff, so I had more free time, I guess, to focus on Pokemon because I was off of work and all that. But I had a day to drive down there, and I got to meet Zach. I got to meet Charlie and some other people, and it just like sparked a whole huge interest in like, this is a real thing that I want to do with my life. Yeah. So those events are huge.
That was my honeymoon, was Worlds in Anaheim.
Was it really?
Yeah. Because we went there, and then we went to Disney. We stayed in Anaheim and went to Disney right afterwards. So I guess Disney was technically the honeymoon, but it was Worlds and then Disney all in one go.
Yeah, I don't think you were. Well, you were always working those events, right?
Well, Laura was always officially working the events, and then I'm unofficially working for David at the events.
Yeah, you're running around trying to get stuff for David.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're hanging around that time.
Hey, Anaheim was my fourth honeymoon. So
you were there.
Yes, I was there.
I remember you were talking to Pratt, and I was like, "Who's that guy with the back? Who's that old guy with the backpack?"
You know what?
I had no idea who you were.
I'm going to take it as a win because you didn't say old fat guy. You just said old guy. So I'm going to take that as a win.
You've always been in good shape.
My body dysmorphic issues notwithstanding.
You've always been in good shape. I know that.
I appreciate it. I definitely try because I've got mental illness, which if we ever want to do a podcast on my mental illness around my eating, you guys will understand what it is when you go to fat camp because I've been there. So anyways, but moving on to actually less realistic things, I don't want to gloss over what you said, John. I think it's such an important thing, the moment that you opened that Charizard card. Yeah. Because it's something that I've never been able to experience in all my years. When somebody called me and said, I'm just using an example. This is one. It would be the same thing if I was saying getting the #1 trophy from a certain year. I'm going to use the pre-release just because it's sort of the iconic card of the collection. Somebody called me and said, hey, Will.i.am can't get it graded. He's going to give it up. He wants to put it back on the market. That's an exciting thing. I didn't know what I was doing, whatever. But there is nothing like the moment of opening a card that hit. And for me, the one moment that comes to mind is, which, John, you'll appreciate it because of your background. It was my son in high school. My son was a standout basketball player, and he had come down with virtually no time left on the clock, turned over the ball, the other team got it, and they scored to take the lead with less than 6 or 7 seconds left. Ball gets inbound at one end of the court, gets back into my son's hand, comes up the court, shifts right, shifts left, gets to a step past half court, and sinks the game winner against the thing to win like the section championships. And I will never forget the out-of-body experience in the moment, right? Yeah. Of what you're feeling in the moment. I'm crying, I'm jumping. There's video of me running across like I was drunk. So I've never had that feeling because I've never opened a pack. And to hit the preeminent card, it's the reason I think, and I'm going full circle here to you at TikTok, I think it's the reason why this live streaming thing is so big and so exciting and the gentleman you had on, Brandon, the other night or whatever, talking about the entertainment value along with just the potential for value, is one of the big reasons why all these content creators are doing so well, because they allow people to have those very cherished moments.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Can I just quickly jump in, and I'm going to preemptively answer the biggest question that people have about that story, and no, not that Will I Am. It was just a guy on Poke Gym whose name was Will, whose screen name was Will-I Am. So just getting ahead of that.
Thank you, Dan. I always count on you to make sure that everything I say doesn't sound as wrong as it really is. So,
And speaking of comments, we had a few comments last week's video. Some of them were obviously relevant to asking John some questions. Should we jump into those now? Because we're already like 90 minutes in, and technically this is still the intro, and we never got past how has your week been?
well, you know what? This is the reason John's had to struggle so much with the podcast. He's never figured out trying to stick to a segment. So, okay, go ahead, Dan.
All right. Well, I will say I'm going to skip through some of the comments. We'll just read the ones that are relevant to John. Anything else that people ask, I'll try and we'll reply to them or we'll mention them next week. We have Catchable Collectibles. Dan just says hi, Dan, hi, Dave, hi, John, and then he talks about OBS and streaming, but we'll talk about that a bit more. But hi, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
We all know Dan. Professor Birch says, question for Radar. Did you get a chance to try the vending series machine when you went to visit Rusty a couple of weeks ago?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I use it more than anybody. He stuffed it with a whole bunch of random stuff, like the card ass, the old back, what are the green and blue back? That's Top Sun. Random like those stickers that were either bootleg or not. We don't really know, but okay. He filled it up with a bunch of stuff. I actually had some Japanese yen in my backpack from the world strip, so I was able to donate a couple hundred yen to him.
The machine that he has, was it one that was bought recently, the refurbished one, or was this from a long time ago?
I didn't ask.
Okay.
It looked good. I don't know if it was refurbished, but it had the nice graphic on the front.
There was one that was just put out for sale in the last few months, and I just wondered if he might have bought that one and then went from there. Yeah. So just a curiosity.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it was interesting. It would occasionally spit out like 10 cards at a time. So sometimes I got 0, but yeah, I wonder if that's how they actually worked in Japan, because that would be great for a kid to put in 100 yen and get 10 cards.
So did he like affix multiple cards to sheets and stuff so they came out like the sheets, or was it not a vending series machine?
No, it was it was the machine that had the Bandai card ass like Pikachu on the front. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Potentially. Also, it wasn't one that spit out like the vending series sheets. It spit out individual cards.
Not the sheets. It was individual cards.
Yeah. All right.
And Dan, you could find that. You could find that and actually people might like to see that because it's so recent. The guy that just sold it, you'll find that online if you want to put a picture. Did you go to? I'm sorry, I just didn't remember. Now that you said it with the yen, did you go to Worlds?
Yes.
Yes. Just any quick reflections on that? Your thoughts on what you did there and what it felt like.
Yeah, it was my second time in Japan, which was great because I was able to navigate myself a little bit more. But I went in with 0 expectation of getting anything from that Pokemon event. I wasn't even expecting to go to the Pokemon event because I had won 0 of the lotteries to get anything. So I that actually made my trip great because I had 0 expectation, ended up getting, again, having the friends that I have getting me into the Pokemon Center for their time slots to get stuff for myself.
Unethical. I'm right. Wait till you see my video, buddy. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I really, I was able to truly just enjoy my time in Japan. That's what I went for. It was me time, and I spent some time by myself, going to a bunch of shops, exploring Japan. I bought a Snap Articuno impulsively, which was an amazing memory.
Wow.
I'm surprised my credit card worked for that. That was not fun to look at for a little bit, but actually sold my number 1 Pikachu to help fund that. And
What number one Pikachu was that?
I had a PSA 9 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. And then yeah, I was sure to link up with, some of my closer friends in the hobby that were there to spend time with them and really get the most out of Japan. So
Would you care to say, because we are so transparent on our podcast, but we are not a pressure podcast, and if you choose not to say, that's completely on you. But if you'd like to say, people would be interested to know, what did you sell the PSA 9 2018 number one for?
112,000.
Okay, good. A great price, and congratulations. I will let you know next time you would like to go on a trip to Japan. If you'd like my daughter to accompany you, you won't have to sell your number one Pikachu. I will allow you to keep it, and I will fund the trip for you. So just keep that in mind. And she's not one of those girls where I need to do that. I just think that, you guys have great common personalities. I'm really seeing something here. Dan, stay out of it. It's not your business. You got married and you were on your honeymoon in 2017. Okay, go ahead.
I appreciate that, Dave.
And I'm a very irreverent father-in-law. You'll understand. I'm just supportive. I don't judge. Okay. Go ahead. Get a cat. They're fun. Okay.
That was the most expensive trip I ever took in my life, and very lucky to have the freedom to do that. But usually, I would advise people to go in with more of a plan than I did, because that was a bit reckless. But I had the time of my life.
Japan was such a nice place. Worlds was my first time in Japan, and normally with Worlds, I always think like, oh, that's a nice vacation, but it's a vacation city. Yeah. Yokohama, Tokyo, I was like, I'd move that tomorrow if I could. Like that.
Yeah.
The whole place was incredible. I mean, we'll definitely go back at some point for a non-Worlds thing to do more touristy exploration. This time it was Disney, then Worlds, and then a few days around Shibuya. But we definitely want to explore more of Japan. It was such an incredible place.
I still need to do Disney there. I haven't done it yet.
It was really, really good, Disney. We got lucky on our first day because we went like the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and so the first day it was pretty empty, like not empty, but it was relatively quiet for Disney because the Monday apparently started a week-long Japanese holiday, so everyone was coming down the Monday. So because of that, the Sunday was relatively quiet, and then Monday and Tuesday were absolutely packed.
And it was so hot. That was dreadful.
Yeah, I ended up skipping Space Mountain because we had 2 days at sea and 1 day at land. And one of the things about land was so we were then being more selective of what we did. And then Space Mountain was like, okay, I've done other Space Mountains and I've done Hyperspace Mountain, which is better than Space Mountain. And it was like, oh, it is also 110 degrees and like the first 90 minutes of this line is outside. So yeah, I'm just going to go do Haunted Mansion again or something.
Yeah. Smart move.
Yeah.
Dan, next comments, buddy. I took you off track, and you never should let me do that. You're either running the podcast or you're not.
All right. Well, I want to say to Stephen Kassoon, first of all, thanks for all the comments. Also, you asked a few questions, including stuff about the Van Gogh stuff. We'll get it. Me and David will probably get into the Van Gogh stuff later because today I booked my tickets to go to the museum. I am going to be going to the museum at the end of the month.
All right. Well, now we have to talk about it. I want to know.
All right. We'll talk a little bit about it because so my brother is getting married at the end of this month. So we were going back to the UK for a couple of weeks anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out that the weekend before my brother's getting married, there is a Pokemon Regionals in Lille. So Laura said, oh, well, I'm going to see if I can judge that one or work at that. And then we'll just fly into Lille, fly into Paris, and then get the train up to Newcastle. So she worked that out. And then they announced the Van Gogh thing. So we were like, oh, well, Amsterdam to Newcastle is like a very, very quick flight or ferry ride. So we said, okay, we'll do Lille. Instead of getting the train to Newcastle, we'll get the train up to Amsterdam, stay the night at Amsterdam, then the Monday go to the Van Gogh Museum, and then travel back over to Newcastle. Because we both said, even if we don't get any Pokemon stuff from the gift shop, we would both just quite like to see the Van Gogh Museum because we both love his artwork.
I feel I really want to go. You know my story with the Edvard Munch side of things, because I was in Japan, again, completely ignorant to that Scream set and event happening, and stumbling upon the museum while I was in Japan. No plans to go to this thing. Stumbled upon it, went inside it, got the Mimikyu promo, saw the whole, got to see the painting, which was really cool. and ended up getting the Scream promos, having like the first PSA 10 set. I recently sold them during the craze of those spiking to crazy price points. But yeah, I was one of the few people I know that went to the actual Japanese event museum for that. So I kind of want to go to the Van Gogh one as well, but seems like a bit of a trip.
It's made a lot easier when your wife gets to work Worlds in Paris. So, yeah.
I'll say we wouldn't be going if we weren't already traveling to Europe.
Right,
but because we're traveling over that way anyway, it was... it's probably going to cost us another couple of $100 just to add it in as a stop on the trip. So
worth it, though.
To be honest, there was a chance we would have considered just going to Amsterdam and doing stuff for a day or two anyway, because even if we hadn't done Lille, if we just flown at Newcastle, like say Amsterdam is about an hour flight from Newcastle. It's just across there, and they have fly there all the time because it's a big party city for people from Newcastle. But yeah, we both like the artwork, and we've said we'll go in with no expectations, and we'll say if we manage to get any of the merch from the gift shop or anything, we'll consider that a bonus. If they still have the cards, we'll consider that a bonus, and we'll just go and we'll actually enjoy the exhibit and we'll enjoy the museum.
Yeah, save the ticket you get. I still have the ticket, but it's all bent up because I didn't think anything of it. But the ticket would be
I'm sure we will. There's going to be a lot of stuff there, and then if we're not going to buy any of the merch off the secondary market yet until we go, just in case they do have some stuff. But if we don't get stuff, we'll just come and we'll pay the inflated prices for what we wanted. It's whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so now, old guy, imparting a little bit of wisdom real quick. So one thing about this podcast that's so interesting is listening to John talk about his business success with Pokemon along the years. And so you made a quick comment about selling those Scream. I, of course, know nothing. Mimikyu, Scream, who even knows what you're talking about? But you picked up some card, you graded it a 10, you sold it, you made some money during the hype. And the only thing I want to make sure we highlight there real quick is that for years, many, many years ago, when I was in the sports card industry, I realized how difficult it was to be both a collector and a business owner, because you don't have necessarily the capital, and you got to keep selling, making money, and shifting that money back into new inventory to make a real business. And if you're not doing that, you end up harming yourself. And there are certain people who we know that are letting the whole hobby know they think that I'm a Mr. Rich guy out here. And they have no idea that when you're not selling stuff, your capital doesn't go nearly as far. You're locking down stuff. So, which is why some guys have had much more productive financially histories in the hobby than I have. And so I just, for those that are looking at business and listening to John, Mr. Radar, it's really an important lesson to understand how difficult it is to do both.
Yeah, it definitely took me a few years to get used to, and I would go back and forth between having some steadier income through consulting or through a job, and I would be able to shift my mindset. Like right now, I've got this new job, so I can collect if I want to an extent. I can't afford to collect a 13,000. I sold the Scream set for 13 grand. I can't afford to collect a $13,000 set. That's a lot of money. That takes years of saving. Yeah. But when I'm full on Pokemon stuff, everything is for sale. I have to treat it as business, treat it as inventory. It's no longer a collection, to build that and grow that. And I wouldn't have what I have without that mindset. So as much as I'd love to be incredibly financially successful outside of the hobby so that I can collect the things I truly want to collect, it's a very difficult thing to do. So,
and that, my friend, is why they make the lottery. Start playing and play often and often. Okay. No, listen, I need to clarify because Stan's going to get banned. I do not condone gambling. I do not play the lottery. If you want to play the lottery, go buy your favorite stock. At least it won't disappear at the end of the night when you lose the Powerball for $12 million.
Less likely to.
Yes, I know.
Real life financial advisor David Person there. Just go and buy lottery tickets.
Yes. Okay, make sure you keep all the good stuff in. Don't cut that. Dan, is there another comment? People want to know stuff from Tom. They don't want to hear from me.
There are some more comments. Like I say, sorry to the people I'm skipping. Me and David will get to them at some point. But Matty says, fantastic episode. He says, all the words David got wrong. Lamb basting was my personal favorite. You see, Matty gets his entire comment read out because Matty subscribes to me on Patreon. So that I promise this is
everyone.
I promise this
Everyone
is not happening
subscribe
very
to
often.
Patreon.
I promise this is not happening often. I promise there's no super favoritism to Patreon people. I do appreciate all the people who watch. I'm just
there is favoritism to Patreon. Everyone go to Patreon, subscribe, support Dan.
Pay me $1 a month for
that's all it is. Even if symbolic support, it's huge.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You get your name in the end screen that no one reaches because David rants for 10 minutes at the end of the episode. Anyway, he says, Matty says, Radar is a legend. I think I was one of his first donators too, and overpaid a lot when buying a Cards and Coffee mug from him, which I still have. And
overpaid?
I assume Matty maybe got hit with some customs or something being in the UK.
Oh, okay,
And he says, question for him, what's been his proudest achievement in Pokemon? I guess you kind of touched on this a little bit with, opening jars and stuff's been a big memory, but was there anything you consider an achievement?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's professionally, career-wise, I feel like I've come very far in being able to transition a hobby into a career.
That's the best answer. I'm so glad you said that. That's exactly what I was hoping you were going to say. It should be right now with this TikTok thing. Why am I talking for you? Shut up. It's his question. Don't answer. What the hell are you thinking?
No, it's important because not a lot of people will understand that and look at it that way. And it might just be a normal job to a lot of people, but it is wild to have taken the leap that I did. I used to sell robotic arms and take a children's hobby into a business and turn it into a job at one of the biggest social media platforms in the world is quite the journey. So very, very proud of myself for that.
Yeah.
Did you say I used to sell robotic arms?
Yeah, I used to sell. I used to sell robotic arms for industrial automation, mostly car companies. I tried to sell the PSA and CGC and Beckett once I discovered that part of the world of collecting, because I wanted to sell them arms for like encapsulating cards and all that. Never got anywhere with it, but yeah, I used to sell robotic arms, and although I'm thankful for that job, I did not enjoy it.
It definitely sounds cool though. When you say it, it sounds cooler. So
it sounds way cooler. Yeah.
Did you go to the Gundam Museum when you were out in Japan?
I only went and saw the big Gundam statue. I did not go inside the museum.
You didn't go to they had a display in there where it was like they set up like 5 Gundams all in small pieces like around, and they just had like a pair of robotic arms just building all these tiny little Gundams and putting them out in full display. That was on the subject of robotic arms. That was pretty cool.
That's exactly what I was selling. Yeah.
I didn't know much about Gundam, and then Laura was like, "No, we are going to the Gundam Museum." I was like, "All right," and then we saw the giant Gundam. It was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, let's have a 5-minute discussion with the Gundam word repeated 800 times and no one knows what you're talking about. They took the Gundams, they put the Gundams on, the robotic arms built the Gundams. Hey, watch our podcast. We're not going to tell you what Gundams mean. Go to Mr. Google and figure it out.
Everyone other than you knows what it means. It's like when you said no one knows what the Scream Monk promos are. Everyone other than you knows what it means.
Come on, Dave. Get with it.
Terrible. It's just, I don't know. I talk about glutton for I should be. You know what I am? I'm a Gundam for punishment. Okay, go ahead, Dan. You're fine.
I'll tell you what. That's the asking for comments this week. Everyone, tell us in the comments if you knew what a Gundam is, and if enough people don't, we'll start next week's podcast explaining Gundams.
And you can forget it, because if I got nothing more than in this podcast to get my daughter hooked up with this wonderful guy, then I did something today. My time was worth it. Okay, so that's fine.
I'm so glad that Allie doesn't watch these podcasts. I mean, I'm assuming
it doesn't matter. When she sees this guy's face and I tell her what I think about him, she's gonna be. It's done. This is all a matter just of time now. Get settled into Washington. If you need someone to help you unpack, let me know.
I very nearly moved to Washington a few years back.
Yes, but I wasn't trying to hook you up with John.
I just thought it was relevant. I don't know if you guys know the story.
I'm so excited for it. I mean, with WotC employees potentially out there and stuff like that. I'm pumped.
Well, it was when it was probably about
Maybe
2017.
I'll end up with a pre-release Pikachu or a Raichu.
Right,
We'll
there
see.
you go. Yeah, and it is WotC employees. People, it's a lot of people still working at WotC. I think are the ones that have them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, if you go by the WotC building, Andrew Finch is the guy you need to look for. Andrew Finch is the only name I know that 100% at one point owned a pre-release Raichu and 100% still works at WotC. So if you just hang around WotC and try and find him.
Just a sign with Andrew Finch on it. waiting for
Are
him to
you
come
Andrew
up.
Finch? Yeah. But we nearly moved there because Laura got down to the last two in a job interview for TPCI. She got to the point where they actually flew her out to Washington for a week to
Wow.
like do the final interviews with the final two of them, and so she could experience Washington and Seattle and see, is this a place you'd be willing to relocate to?
It's a brutal company. They're ruthless with their
Yeah,
their hiring process.
the hiring process and the turnover and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, a couple more comments with questions. Your average player. First, I'd say shout out to Tord for making us Norwegians proud. I did not know you were Norwegian. Average player. We talked about Tord a bit in the last episode. He said, questions for Radar. He says, number one, will you have David and or Dan on the podcast? I mean, no pressure, no high pressure situation to ask you on here.
Absolutely. I've got you guys on there first as individual guests, and then I hope to start doing some like group guest conversations.
That'd be cool.
So
yeah,
you'll see two episodes, hopefully, at a minimum, with both of their faces.
Please make sure mine comes before Dan's, because if I've got to follow Dan's episode, no one's going to watch. Okay, he's like the American version. Actually, not. He's not even American. He's like the permanent U.S. citizen version of Tord in Norway, and I can't follow a rock star like that. John, so just keep that in mind. Go ahead.
That's because 90% of my stories in Pokemon aren't I got this thing, it's I found this thing for David.
Oh man, okay. All right.
Yeah, we need to pencil in some dates, but yes, I'd love to be on the podcast. Yes. Alone with David, with some other people, whatever. He then also says, trying to see if we've already covered these topics. When making friends and connections in the hobbies, especially with doing deals, how do you make sure that the relationship be both as a friend and as a business?
Usually your friends want you to win. So if you are surrounding yourself and doing deals with people who are taking advantage of you or trying to really take everything for themselves, not give you anything, not be a part of it with you, then they're probably not your friends. You know, I think the most meaningful relationships that I've built are like both personal, have become stronger personally because of the business side of it, where we've helped each other make money. We've helped each other complete collection goals. We help save money by getting the same, sharing a hotel room, whatever it is. I mean, to me, I am not shy to talk about money. I know a lot of people are, but I am not shy whatsoever to talk about money and make that a part of the personal relationship, because it can really help people get a lot further in life.
Cool.
I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
I just like you so much. You're just such a good guy. When you say that your friends want you to win, I mean, these are just tremendous pearls of wisdom that we're just going over and boom, 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 next question, but they have to be highlighted because I look at relationships just in life. If you're involved with someone in a love relationship and you find yourself competing with them versus invested in them and supporting them, it's completely different outcomes ultimately, because you're really in that person's corner if it's a good long-term relationship. And I can assure you, John, that my daughter will be in your corner the whole time. But I want to say that's such a great pearl of wisdom. Your friends want you to win. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge thing around in the hobby, and especially in anything like content creation, stuff like that. It's so easy to surround yourselves with yes men, and people are like, oh, you're doing great, keep doing whatever. But a real friend is someone who will say to you, right, no, you're screwing this up. This is what you need to do instead. And that's always good.
I mean, I'll call out like Squeaks, one of my best friends in the hobby. He will call me out for all of my BS immediately and keep me on track when I'm starting to fall off. So that's another important thing too. Be with friends who will give you harsh advice and be straightforward with you. That's another big piece of it too.
And his last question was, when negotiating for others, how do you stay confident and secure in spending other people's money?
Transparency is the biggest thing. And like if I'm dealing with somebody who won't, on both ends, if they don't trust me, it makes it incredibly difficult. If I'm buying for somebody, I need to know what's your budget? How much money do you have? How much are you willing to spend? I will do the negotiating for you. So if you're going to negotiate with me as the negotiator, you're just going to lose. I need full transparency, full understanding of what you're willing to do to get a deal done. So that's really, it's just trust. Trust is the biggest thing to make a deal happen in a trustworthy way. As simple as that is.
I'll say with me, the only person's money I spend is David's, and I have absolutely no morals or insecurities about doing that. Sometimes the best thing with that is that David doesn't remember anything from one day to the next. So I'm happy to just say to him, hey, David, you remember yesterday you agreed to spend this money on this card? Just send the money to the guy. And he's like, did I? It's like, yeah. He's like, what's this card? I'm like, don't worry about it. Just send this guy some money. Let's go to Worlds. I'm like, hey, David, can you send this guy like 80 grand? And he's like, why? I'm like, I'll tell you later. Just, can you send this guy some money? I promise it's fine.
Those are my favorite clients to work with.
Yeah.
Dave, it sounds like you make it easy. Well done. You guys have a good relationship.
He makes the purchasing of cards easy. Everything else in my life he makes more difficult. But
okay,
when we're buying him stuff, he actually makes it quite easy.
I'm just here. I'm in the room, gentlemen. I'm in the darn room. Okay, that's fine. Me and my monkey. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, that was
how about you, Dave? Dave, what do you think about that? Since you're on the other end of this, you're the one that is the buyer. What are your thoughts on this?
Look, I already told you. I love you and I'm in love with you. There's nothing you say that I don't agree with. You said accountability, transparency, and trust. I'm a good listener, by the way. And so the reality is all of it. It's absolutely imperative. I trust Dan implicitly. He is my friend. I know that, move over here. I'm the guy that's starring on the podcast. I know that he's in it for me and not himself. I know that I always would try to take care of him in the end in any way that I could. And so you do have to have trust. You have to have really good communication, but that's also inherent in trust. And then, yes, transparency. We discuss every detail, and it has to be that way. And I think what's so interesting about this discussion is that one of the most morally difficult things is, what do you do when you're doing business with a friend and it doesn't work out? Are you still able to be their friend? Can you say, look, we couldn't make that happen, so we're not going to do business together, but we're still friends? As you both know, some people are okay with that, and some people are completely not okay with that. They kind of write you off. I don't really have an opinion on which is the right way to go. I think it's got to be individual decision for everybody involved. Obviously, there's some level of tolerance that has to be in there. But I mean, I will say, I think through the years, just Dan and I, we don't always agree on a lot of stuff. I look at last week and he literally cut the heck out of that video. And I was not happy. And sometimes I'll send him something and say, what the heck were you thinking? But deep down, we know we care about each other and we're in it for each other. And so we can weather those storms and just come on through.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when we inevitably have our giant blowout argument and decide we never want to do this podcast again, we'll stay friends.
Inevitably.
Yeah. When David sent me the 5th message in a week at what is 3 a.m. my time, because he doesn't understand time zones, asking why we haven't gone viral yet, and I just finally tell him where to go, we'll still remain friends, and I'll still help you buy cards.
I always have my monkey. I don't need you anymore.
You do. You have your monkey. All right, latest comment was from Lamar. He didn't actually ask Radar any questions, but I want to just bring this from him because he asked what the plush in the background there were, and this is better to do without actually just replying to the comment. I'm assuming he means the plush that normally sit over there on my bulk boxes. and I want to show them off. It's Chip and Dale. I got these in Tokyo. I got like dozens of Chip and Dale's plush in Tokyo because I went to Tokyo and I was like, I'm only going to buy pins. They're very small. They're very easy to bring back. I'm just going to buy pins. And then there were like basically no pins at Tokyo Disneyland. I managed to get 2 or 3. So I just bought all of the Chip and Dale plush instead. And we had to buy 3 extra suitcases. Although most of those were for sleeves from Pokemon Centers. But these are very, very nice soft Chip and Dales from Tokyo. Those are the ones that you normally see in the background of the video, and there's some Vaporeon plush and stuff on the floor, and there's actually a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man that we won from a claw machine just down there. There's plush all over this house. We have thousands of plush. Lamar actually also asked if I could showcase my Vaporeon collection at some point. Yeah, I'm sure we'll do that in a future podcast. I do show off new bits as it comes in, but I haven't really upgraded the Vaporeon collection a lot recently. But yes, I will do that in a future podcast. Anyway, we can get back to talking to Radar now. Or not so much anymore, because we're nearing the 2-hour mark. Oh, I forgot Zencaster has like a 2-hour recording limit. We'll have to start a new room if we hit the 2-hour mark. Anyway, Dave, any further questions for John? Or John, anything you wanted to ask us?
Well, I'll start, and I'll just say, John, thank you so much. So kind, your generosity, your, just the wisdom that you impart to us, to the hobby. It goes back to what you said. I hope that people... I wish we had more viewers that could really appreciate kind of the value of your experience and wisdom for everyone. So thank you for taking the time. It means a lot, and we appreciate you. And I'm also very sorry that you'd have to put up with as much as Dan tried to put you through today. I'm glad I could at least insulate it to some degree.
No.
I know I'm tremendously looking forward to being on your podcast, but that doesn't mean you have to put me on because even if I didn't be on there, we'd still be friends because I have respect for you.
You're on the list. You're going to be there. So
okay, good.
The time will come. Thank you guys.
My daughter is Allie. She'll be contacting you soon. Just keep her in the DMs for now, and then when you get all settled, I'll work that out with you.
Unbelievable.
You're gonna like her a lot. She's a sweet girl.
Well, it's a big compliment for coming from.
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. I make things happen. I've done this, and by the way, my son. I'm going to mention this just because I want you to know his name someday because of your basketball prowess. But my son is Luke, and Luke is going to be an NBA player. So I just want you to keep that in mind, and you'll remember that's my son.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
looking forward to that.
So yeah, that'll be fun. And but thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Dan, let him go, man. The guy's got to get packed for Washington and TikTok. Oh, by the way, I'll be in contact because I'm going to stream on TikTok very, very soon. And I'm gonna, even though you're busy and I'm not a regular and I'm not on there as a person yet, and that's not your role. I'm going to at least leverage the contact at some point.
Yeah, I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
Good.
So thank you guys for having me. I mean, please keep this up because I appreciate the knowledge that you guys share. And
I suppose any questions you have for us, you can save until we're on your podcast and you can ask us stuff then.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully, the people watching enjoyed this. I don't even have time to read out all our social medias and stuff. Check out the links in the description for Koffee Talks, for Radar, for me, for David, whatever. Leave some more comments. Tell us if you knew what a Gundam was. And we will see you all again next week.
Subscribe to Radar. He's way better than us. Get in there, find his podcast, Pokemon Radar. Make sure you do it. Otherwise, I swear to God, we'll take this podcast right off the air. I don't care.
Thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
See you all later.
Thanks for listening to Koffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person, featuring music by More Than Never and artwork by Laura Norton. A special shout out to all of our Patreon members. Join us again next time.
But they don't want you to have a